The Thunder beat the Spurs last night and are now only a half game behind San Antonio for the top spot in the Western Conference. And while the Nuggets, third in the West, beat the Mavs, they had a loss in a different way. Last night, a source told Yahoo Sports that Gallinari likely has a torn ACL. And the Clippers reportedly have issues of their own, as the LA Times is reporting that specific players are not getting along, and I'm talking about Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, who both reportedly have a problem with CP3. Lots of drama out west. It's not the Lakers this time around. Here's the question. Who's your favorite in the West right now, considering all things, Stephen A?
Considering all things right now, Skip, it's back to where I started the season at, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder as the favorite out west. And allow me to dissect some other teams in the Western Conference as we break this down. The San Antonio Spurs have fallen to number 2 because they're not winning the West without Tony Parker. And Tony Parker's not healthy. To his credit, he's not using his shin injury as any excuse, sitting out the last 7 minutes of last night. He's saying, I just got to get healthy, but did acknowledge he's got a lot of things going on. Who knows what that means? That's number 1. Number 2, Denver, as great as they are, 34-3 at home, best home record in the NBA, 19-game home winning streak. Gallinari is a huge loss for them. It's a huge loss for them. And even though I didn't think they were going to win the West anyway, they're at a severe disadvantage without him. Gallinari is no Carmelo Anthony, but he's no scrub. Losing him is a big, big deal, especially with a team filled with second-tier stars because they have no elite star. Now let me get to the most interesting and compelling part of this. The Los Angeles Clippers, a team that I thought had a legitimate shot to go to the Western Conference Finals and are not in danger of not even getting out of the first round. Let me first say, it's nothing different than what I've told Vinny Del Negro to his face this season. He loses early in the playoffs, he's going to be out of a job. It's just that simple. He knows it. He understands it. Number 2, when we talk about blame in Clipperland, let me tell you where the blame lies. To a guy I genuinely like, and that is DeAndre Jordan. Because if DeAndre Jordan can hit free throws in the fourth quarter, he wouldn't be on the bench. He'd be playing. They'd be more formidable offensively. They'd be more formidable defensively, and they'd win more games. All right? Him not being on the floor, I think that's where the blame lies, because if he were hitting free throws, he'd be playing, and none of this would be a problem. TJ Simons for the LA Times wouldn't have to write about how DeAndre Jordan is staring down Blake Griffin, how there's some friction going on there, which I've heard is true as well. But in terms of, not a blame, but in terms of who I would say to keep our eyes on, it would be Chris Paul. And the reason is Chris Paul is simple. I consider Chris Paul right now to be the best point guard in the game. I think he's a floor general, a floor leader. I think he's cerebral as a point guard. He's exceptional. But when you hear stuff about him chitter-chattering too much and wearing on guys because he's more Kobe-like than anything else, well, part of being a leader is learning what works and what doesn't work. Now, I haven't spoken to Chris Paul. I intend to, all right? So I'm not going to go but too far with my statements. But I will say to you that to be that great and to have a team that talented, and to know before the playoffs begins that these problems are being highlighted within the organization. And I don't believe it's Chris Paul's fault. Please don't get me wrong. I'm simply saying you're the one individual with the position, the skill, and the cachet, because you're approaching a contract year, and it's very important for the Clippers to re-sign you. You're the one with all 3 of those ingredients in your favor to make a difference if you are every bit as great as I believe he is. So from this point forward, we all need to keep our eyes on Chris Paul, not because it's his fault, not because he's to blame, but because he's the one with the skill and the cachet to change this around and make the difference. If it doesn't happen, then it is much of an indictment against him as it is against anybody else. That's what I had to say.
I like everything you said. I'm going to take it a step farther. In all my years of covering the National Basketball Association, I can never, ever remember the Western Conference being so wide open so late in the year. What a great year this would be for Kobe to take those Lakers on a miracle run to the finals. What a great year it would be.
It would be great.
Now it's not so far-fetched. First, they got to actually make the playoffs. But if they do, I for one would not be shocked if they made a miracle run here.
Utah and Dallas lost in the last 2 days.
Exactly.
I know. They're looking okay right now. Not great, but okay. They're looking better. Got a shot.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
All of a sudden, the decks are starting to clear because, you don't even. Ty Lawson has a torn plantar fascia. I think Denver is looking done to me as far as being any kind of threat here.
Right.
Now, back to the top.
Okay.
This is going to be very difficult for me. You know I love hard, and right now I am grieving hard. And I'm not kidding about this. I could not sleep last night because you know how much I thought of the Spurs' chances. There was a point in late February when they weren't just a good team, they were the best team in the NBA. I thought they had a real shot to beat the Miami Heat in the finals. And I believe that in late February, Tony Parker was the MVP of this league, and I could back that up.
Right.
This is extremely painful for me to admit right now on live national TV. I'm pretty sure they're going out in the first round. Mm-hmm. Especially if they run headlong into James Harden's Houston Rockets. That is because Manu Ginobili almost certainly will not play in the first round with a bad hamstring. And I've tried to tell you for 2 weeks, Tony Parker's ankle injury was so severe, he should not be playing right now, and it will not get better. It will not get healed until he has a whole offseason. That tears my heart out because you take away Ginobili and Tony Parker, who, when he had his burst, you know this, he could get to the rim anytime he wanted to at 6 feet 3 inches. He can't get to the rim anymore. Against the Thunder last night, he scored 2 points. He was a liability on offense and defense. I just watched Norris Cole outplay him in San Antonio for the Heat, and then I watched Mike Conley Jr. destroy him down the stretch. Memphis, it's sad. I know he's good.
No joke.
And they're no joke. They got a shot. Memphis. Let's not overlook them.
They're physical, they're smart, and they play defense.
Okay, now this brings me to the Thunder. By default, they would be the pick to win the West. But Stephen A., another case last night of how much they do miss James Harden. Because I predicted my Spurs would lose by 25. They were down 20 in the second quarter. They were down 19 in the third quarter. And who was always the final nail in the coffin? James Harden would come off the bench and just light you up. And you'd say, he's so fresh and he's getting into the lane and he's making threes and we can't stop James Harden. No James Harden last night. There was no final nail. They couldn't close the coffin on what was left of the San Antonio Spurs. And Kevin Durant, what has happened to him? Something's awry. Something's amiss. It's not nice, Kevin. It's not right, Kevin. You know, the new Nike campaign. It's become not right, Kevin. Over the last month, he's tied for the lead in the NBA in turnovers. I hate to say it, with Kobe Bryant. Kobe will try some things, but Kevin doesn't play turnover basketball. And Stephen A., I keep looking at the numbers and I say, this is impossible. He's had 11 games in the last month of 5+ turnovers. And he had 6 last night, 6 turnovers against the Spurs? Really? That's not right. No James Harden. Something's a little off.
You have to remember, there's no James Harden.
Yeah.
There's more of an onus on him.
To play
and
point guard.
He has that emotional battle because it's not innate in him to be the alpha male, to be the dude that takes charge. So when he tries to, it's an aberration because he's indecisive. Kobe doesn't care.
Right.
Kevin Durant cares. But the shooting percentage is still up there.
No,
the points is still up there. Yeah. Just a bit with the turnovers, but I will acknowledge to you, I knew James Harden could ball, and I knew he was good. This dude is a superstar. He's a superstar.
Yeah.
James Harden, there is such a discrepancy. And I like Kevin Martin, who can play and put the ball in the hole. He is no James Harden.
No.
It's not even close to me. And that's a loss.
Okay, final point on the Clippers. The other team in L.A.
The other team.
Lob City is turning into Sob City. And DeAndre wants to be a star.
Yes.
And he sees Blake get all the... I can't turn on my TV. There's another Blake Griffin commercial. And he wants some shots. Do you realize Blake has hoisted up 554 more shots than DeAndre has?
Wow. He deserves it.
Woo! Wow. And I'm with you, but it really puts the onus on DeAndre to say, do I get the ball? Now, go ahead. Well, Chris Paul, you brought him up and you were eloquent about it. Chris Paul has a rage to win that sometimes turns into an irritant to his own team. He definitely irritates the other team, but you know how he just pecks away at people until finally you say, just give me a break. Back off a little bit, because he tends to alienate as a leader more than to unify as a leader. It doesn't come across as constructive criticism.
No, but that's so hard to absorb, because here's where Chris Paul is getting a bad rap. DeAndre Jordan is limited. He's learning. I love his upside. His athleticism is off the chart.
He can dunk.
And boy, can he dunk. He's a highlight reel too. But he's not polished. He doesn't have the game. And Blake Griffin's not polished either. But his offensive repertoire is significantly elevated above DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as Blake Griffin right now. And he needs to get over that. And him not being able to hit free throws. He needs to correct that. But the combination of those two together, both being limited in terms of their post game, limits Chris Paul. Because if you have the ability to step away from the basket and to make shots on that level,
I agree.
It gives Chris Paul room to operate.
Doesn't happen.
So the fact that they are Lob City is entirely because of Chris Paul.
Yep.
If it were not for him, there would be no such thing as Lob City. So for anybody to have an attitude with him, oh my goodness, talk about blasphemy. Don't get me wrong. He can push, he can drive, he can be irritable, but I like that.
Yeah.
You know, that we ain't trying to be friends, we're trying to win. And I get that.
You talked about him being a leader. In the LA Times report, Chris was asked about being, for lack of a better word, annoying, and he laughed, and he said, you know what, I do need to work on being a better leader.
My last comment is this. I didn't like that comment from Chris Paul. You know why?
Why?
Because that's Chris Paul connected with CAA, who's very image conscious.
Okay.
By the way, Chris Paul, you are a high character individual. You are a role model and a basketball ambassador from college to now. There is absolutely nothing wrong if people got attitude with this dude. He doesn't need to sit there and go like this, I just need to be a better. No. They need to follow that man, because he's got that killer instinct inside him that the rest of them need.
But if he has that Kobe type of...
I love it.
It's great, but even Kobe acknowledged early on, it's how you say it.
Well, that's because of who, for your Lakers, that's because of who his teammates are. Okay. When Kobe was playing with Rick Fox and Robert Ory and Shaq and Han Harp and those boys, Kobe didn't say that.
You're right.
Because he was dealing with men. Now he's dealing with some boys.
Can't argue that.
That's the difference.
We believe it right there.